Can everybody hear me okay? Wonderful. Good afternoon. Welcome to CIC's speakers event. I want to welcome obviously our members and our friends from the Asia-Pacific Foundation of Canada. And also I want to welcome the members of the Taiwan Alumni Association. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lutfi and I'm the president of the Canadian International Council, Vancouver Branch. Let me just begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, namely the Musqueam Nation, the Squamish Nation, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, who have called this land home for thousands of years. And I would also like to acknowledge that this month is the National Indigenous History Month. And yesterday we just had the National Indigenous Day. It is a time to recognize the rich history, the heritage, resilience, and diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people across the country. I want to thank the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office for collaborating with us and really sponsoring this event. And I also would like to thank our executive team members, Elmer, May, Christy, Salehin, and Tyler, who will be here in a few minutes, for basically helping putting together this event. For those of you who are not members of CIC or not familiar with Canadian International Council, I just want to just share a little bit short history about us. The Canadian International Council Vancouver Branch was set up 95 years ago as one of the first branches of the Canadian International Council in Canada. And our goal is to basically provide a platform so that Canadians or our community can stay engaged on international issues and have meaningful discussions on international issues and foreign policy issues. And we also would like to help create a vibrant community of international affairs and foreign policy practitioners or enthusiasts. So this event is basically one of our ways to achieve that goal. And the title for today's event is Taiwan-Canada Relations Amid the Indo-Pacific Strategy. Taiwan, of course, is an important partner of Canada. It is Canada's 13th largest trading partner globally and the 5th largest trading partner in Asia. And trade volume between Taiwan and Canada has continued to grow significantly over the past few years. But there are complex geopolitical features that are affecting the relationship between Canada and Taiwan. So the questions that linger in the minds of many of us is, what is the future for Canada-Taiwan relations in the midst of this geopolitical construct and in the midst of the recently announced Indo-Pacific Strategy? And how can the two parties collaborate or navigate this complex environment and improve the relations for the years ahead? So this event will seek to answer those questions, and our speaker today is Lihsin Liu, who is the Director General of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Vancouver. And Director General Liu Director General Liu has a really extensive experience as a diplomat and deep understanding of Taiwan's foreign policy and its role in the world. During her 23 years of foreign service for the Taiwan Foreign Ministry, she was posted in the US twice. The first one was in Houston back in 2002 all the way to 2008. And she returned to US, this time was in Los Angeles in 2012 until she finished her service there in 2018. She has also worked in the Institute of Diplomacy and International Affairs, at the Deputy Foreign Minister's Office, at the Mainland Affairs Council, at the Department of North American Affairs, and the Department of East Asian and Pacific Affairs. She has a master's degree from Schools of Advanced and International Studies at the Johns Hopkins University with a focus in China studies and international economics. So we are very grateful to have Director General to be with us today and share her insights and expertise in the subject. So she will be speaking for about 30 minutes and we will open the floor for Q&A. So, with no further ado, please welcome Director General General Liu.
If it is okay, can I sit down and, it will be more natural for us to talk. Good evening. Thank you, CIC, for inviting me to share my views with you on the topic of Taiwan-Canada relations. This is my third speech engagement with CIC. The first one in Victoria, the second in Prince George, and this is the third one. And I'm looking forward to further engage with your colleagues and partners in other cities across provinces in Western Canada, since my territory of responsibility only covers Western Canada. The eastern part, we have Toronto, we have an embassy in Ottawa, and we are going to establish another new office in Montreal, Quebec. So here I am. And during my term here since September 2019, my impression as a diplomat from Taiwan is that anything involves China would become more complicated as a diplomat from Taiwan. And not only because China is a big power, but because it is getting more and more assertive. And as we work so hard to forge a closer bilateral ties between Taiwan and Canada, the ties that not only bind our people-to-people relations, but also at all levels of government, covering provincial and federal. In your Indo-Pacific Strategy that is announced last November by your federal government, Canada would like to develop a variety of relations with Taiwan covering trade, technology, innovation, education, and also countering disinformation and indigenous affairs. There are two factors that have an impact in making the trade diversification strategy for Canada. One is the Ukrainian war. The Ukrainian war has strained the global supply chain that has created a shortage of supply for the global semiconductor industry. And the other factor is the Ukrainian war. The other Ukrainian war and also the COVID-19 pandemic. These two factors have led to the making of your Indo-Pacific strategy. So what's the impact on our bilateral relations? While Canada takes note of your One China policy, that is, you don't endorse or you don't challenge China's claim over Taiwan, we have seen some progress on our bilateral relations in recent years. All this is because the values that we share on democracy, freedom, and respect for human rights, and also the rules-based international order. And all these is along with the spirit of inclusivity of Canadian society that embraces immigrants from all countries around the world, including from Taiwan and from China. Although the topic today is Taiwan-Canada relations, I would like to touch upon the issue of cross-strait relations, that is Taiwan-China relations, and also Taiwan's relations with other countries in the region, because that would, reflect a better picture of Taiwan's relations with Canada. So the first question I would like to raise is, how does Taiwan defend ourselves, and what do we need from our like-minded partners? With rising tensions in the Taiwan Strait, support from like-minded partners is getting more and more important for Taiwan. We welcome the transit of Canadian and American warships through the Taiwan Strait in accordance with international laws. These transits have made it very clear that democracies around the world are against any attempt to change the Taiwan status by force. Just a week before, a Chinese warship came within 150 yards of hitting American destroyer during a rare joint Canada-US mission sailing through the Taiwan Strait. And this is the latest aggressive military move from Beijing in the South China Sea. Actually, it is the HMCS Montreal, the Canadian frigate, which participated in the mission and took the picture and witnessed the near collision from the bridge wing of the ship. And the American warship in Montreal have seen have been sailing through the Taiwan in the South China Sea for nearly a week before they enter into Taiwan Strait. Actually, Chinese warships have shuttled the Canadian vessel on multiple occasions during this transit. According to your Defense Minister, Anita Anand, it is clearly saying that Canada will continue to sail where international law allows, including the Strait and South China Sea. Our overall goal is to increase the peace and stability in the region. So, as Taiwan continues to be the subject of Chinese suppression and pressure, support from the international community is all the more important. We have seen a succession of governments and parliaments expressing their support for us, like the G7 and the NATO and EU have continuously warned Beijing not to use military force to change the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. We welcome the fact that Canada is part of G7 and NATO and showing your support for Taiwan. The G7 leaders' communique in Hiroshima has reaffirmed that the maintenance of peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait is indispensable for regional security and prosperity, and stressed that cross-strait issues need to be resolved peacefully. I think the reasons for these global leaders to show their concern and their support for the peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait is not symbolic at all. As U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken just said in Beijing recently, a Chinese blockade of Taiwan would not only curtail the production of semiconductors, it would potentially plunge the world economy into deep recession, as nearly half of the world's container ships pass through Taiwan Strait every year. Imagine that the shockwave the Canadian economy may experience if the supply chain is disrupted by war, especially a protracted war, like you have witnessed in Ukraine. Of course, we have to look at the Taiwan issue from a broader geopolitical perspective. That is the US-China big power confrontation. Since the beginning of this year, South Korea, Japan, the Philippines have consolidated their bilateral alliances with the United States, and there has been a historical thaw of tensions between South Korea and Japan. All these developments originated from the need to confront the threat from China. The idea that Taiwan is a contingency for Japan, that would involve a US-Japan security alliance. And the Taiwan issue does not simply involve China and Taiwan. It is a global issue like the North Korean issue. And the Philippines granting US access to 4 more bases in case China attacked Taiwan is also the reason that countries surrounding Taiwan are fully aware that Taiwan is only the first domino in Xi Jinping's plans for the realization of his dream of making China the great power. And that this has nothing to do with which political party is in power in Taiwan. Given what we have witnessed in the catastrophic Ukrainian war and being afraid of a potential one in the Taiwan Strait, more and more countries in Europe are also expressing their solidarity with Taiwan in ways that we have never seen before. My Foreign Minister Joseph Wu, who just visited Czechoslovakia and Belgium last week, he was greeted gracefully by Czech President Petro Pavel, as well as the European Parliament, when he made a speech in the country. And he was also greeted by a Member of Parliament in Milan, Italy, after Belgian trip. This is in addition to delegations one after another from European countries to Taiwan, including the France, the UK, Lithuania, Poland, and Belgium, Sweden, and Italy. So given all these international partners' support to Taiwan, we in Taiwan also try to strengthen our self-defense capacities. For many Taiwanese, Russia's invasions into Ukraine has underscored the importance of being prepared for a potential war. And some community groups have rolled out programs to strengthen the people's ability to respond to contingencies. Like, we can pick out an example, like Kuma Academy. It is a newly established NGO in Taiwan. It holds large-scale outdoor training sessions for our civilians to teach them how to study maps, to find suitable shelters, identify appropriate evacuation routes, and tend to different types of injuries. It also holds training courses for Taiwanese civilians to identify fake news that intend to divide our society. So I have been asked a question that it seems that if you walk on the street in Taipei, you may not feel that people are afraid of the imminent invasion of a Chinese attack. But there is a difference in the past that since we have experienced this kind of Chinese threat for decades, we are used to it. But in recent years, this kind of civil group are a new situation in Taiwan because we need to prepare for such kind of invasion. Another NGO is called Forward Taiwan, 壮阔 Taiwan. It has been running outreach programs that have taught people how to weather any potential hardship and adversity. The organization also provides a platform for the public to discuss national defense policies. Of course, the most important factor for us to be prepared for such a war is to acquire defensive military weapons from the United States according to the Taiwan Relations Act. And we enhance our capacity to make indigenous submarines and amending our young men's conscription service, military service from 4 months to 1 year, starting from next year. In 2023, our budget for national defense expenditure is 2.3% of our total GDP, which is equal to 25.2 billion Canadian dollars, an increase of 13.9% than last year. Comparing to what the PRC has spent in its defense expenditure, ours is much smaller in numbers, but we have been cooperated with the United States in developing our capacity to develop our asymmetrical warfare capacity. But all these is to deter the Chinese aggression, not to engage in armed sales. The other important perspective to look at our Taiwan-Canada relations is economy and trade. As Canada looks to diversify your trade in international markets, Taiwan is targeted by BC, the province of British Columbia, and also the Canada as one of its most important partners in the Indo-Pacific, not only because it is a global leader in semiconductor chips, but also the decision-making process in Taiwan is more transparent and predictable. Taiwan's economy has been found complementary and like-minded with Canada's. Both sides have committed to net zero emissions by 2050 and are dedicated to partnering with other countries for renewable solutions. According to Taiwanese media statistics, 75% of an EV car of Tesla, the parts come from Taiwanese manufacturers such as Heda Industrial Group and also TSMC. Owner of one Canadian charging station here in Burnaby shared with me that over 50% of his suppliers are from Taiwan, and 75% of the final products of the charging station go to the United States market. So this is the best example of Taiwanese and Canadian partnership to develop the potential market in North America. Supply chain issue is also an important discussion topic between major economies in the world after the COVID-19 pandemic hit the global markets. Taiwan, as the global leading country in producing semiconductor chips, we are ready to work with Canadian partners in strengthening your semiconductor production and fabrication. For example, TSMC already has a state-of-the-art facility in Ottawa, and the R&D team will continue to expand in the future. And Canada also in 2021 established a semiconductor council. According to the report released by the council, it suggested Canada work with international partners and experts in the production of this industry. The Council also suggested that Canada can leverage its participation in the CPTPP, which is called Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, to achieve your semiconductor goals. Canada is a leading economy in CPTPP, but Taiwan has applied for that, and China has applied for that, but we are waiting for the member countries to support us. And if Canada would like to, maneuver its membership in this multilateral free trade agreement to strengthen its capacity in this industry, I think supporting Taiwan means a lot, since we are the global leading country in this industry. Therefore, we welcome and thank Member of Parliament from Alberta, Mr. Michael Cooper, who is called by Taiwanese fans as one of the most popular political figure in Canada, as Ping Zige, because he has spelled Taiwan's name in Canadian Parliament as Taiwan, not other names, not a province of China, etc. So he introduced a Taiwan-Canada Relations Framework Act at the House of Commons on June 15. This proposed legislation makes supporting Taiwan's bid to join the CPTPP official Canadian policy if it is passed by your parliament and adopted by your government. Canada's economy is actually, its ties with Taiwan is much stronger than you can imagine. Major Taiwanese ICT companies such as Foxconn, Asus, Inventec, and Compal, they have manufacturing plants in China which produce most of the electronics that millions of Canadians use on a daily basis. In fact, 31 of the top exporters in China are actually Taiwanese. This means that it would be economically prohibited if China launched a military attack toward Taiwan, because that would lead to a mass exodus of foreign investors. At the same time, as China faces an increasingly uncertain economic situation nowadays with unemployment at record heights and shrinking foreign investment and sluggish growth, this is something the PRC would like to avoid seeing happening. The Council on Foreign Relations, a think tank in New York, just released a report on U.S.-China relations recently, indicated that China's economic slowdown makes Taiwan crisis more likely, as Chinese President Xi Jinping may further embrace nationalism in his unprecedented third term. So this is the geopolitical situation between Taiwan, China, and U.S.-China big power competition. Agricultural food is another sector that Taiwan is targeted by the BC province's new trade diversification strategy. Moving in line with 55 other countries around the world, the government of Taiwan has announced that it will be lifting bans of beef import of Canadian beef over the age of 30 months on June 15. This decision is expected to help Taiwanese and Canadian policymakers to move forward with their bilateral negotiation on a foreign investment promotion and protection agreement to facilitate our bilateral investment. And 2023 also happens to be the third anniversary of another bilateral arrangement called Taiwan-Canada Organic Equivalency Arrangement. This arrangement has opened more opportunities for Taiwanese and Canadian food manufacturers to cooperate. Another topic that is indicated in Canada's Indo-Pacific Strategy is democratic governance and countering disinformation. And this is the very topic that many Canadian parliamentarians raised to their Taiwanese counterparts when they visited Taiwan, and vice versa. As foreign interference becomes the very topic that for both of us now and for many years to come, this is right time for us to work together to deal with this kind of disinformation issue. Freedom cannot be sustained if the integrity of our information space is undermined. As the presidential election is coming in Taiwan next January, the suspicion against the United States the conspiracy theory that the U.S. will abandon Taiwan once China attacks Taiwan has been spreaded through social media platforms in Taiwan. And we believe this is part of the PRC's cognitive warfare. Not only do we adopt the whole of the government approach to deal with this issue, we also work closely with civic societies such as NGOs of Kuma Academy. We work with Fact Check Center and private companies such as Line and Facebook to combat disinformation from malign actors. Data analysts at the McGill University and the University of Toronto actually has also come up with the Media Ecosystem Observatory, which forensically traces the origins of misinformation and evaluate the impact of Canadian elections. So knowledge sharing between our non-governmental stakeholders would be good approach for us to cooperate. So this is how we can deal with this countering disinformation issue in our societies. Another platform that I think we can work together to deal with this issue is GCTF. It is called Global Cooperation Training Framework. This is a project established in 2015 by Taiwan and U.S. government on topics of cybersecurity, public health, and climate change, and media literacy, etc., to utilize Taiwan's strengths and expertise to address global issues. And participants of this conference are all government agencies and non-governmental organizations. We are happy to see that Canada is already a regular participant in this workshop, along with other democratic countries such as Australia, the UK, Japan, and the Netherlands. So this is the disinformation. So another topic that we are faced with the influence of operation from the PRC is economic coercion. On this topic, I believe Taiwan is not alone when we talk about it, because Canada canola farmers in the prairie provinces had to face the same issue with China in 2019 to 2021 as a repercussion from the Huawei hostage event. China's rise as an economic power has enabled it to manipulate the economic coercion toward Taiwan in diversified ways, such as manipulating trade flows, using financial terms to influence cultural exchange across the Taiwan Strait, luring Taiwan's diplomatic allies, and manipulation of Taiwan's brain drain. There are a couple of examples that let me elaborate a little bit. For example, in 2022, China banned the import of several Taiwanese agricultural goods, such as pineapples, wax apples, sugar apples, and grouper fish. They cite inspection breaches as the harmful pests or chemicals. Beijing targeted these goods not because they can really influence our economy, but because their reliance on China as the main market for export. The other example is Honduras. In March 2023, the Honduras government sought a $2.45 billion from Taiwan to build a hospital and a dam, and to write off debts. The Chinese aid has come in the form of construction of a hydroelectric dam project in central Honduras, built by the Chinese company called Sino-Hydro, with about $300 million in Chinese government financing. For decades, China has funneled billions of dollars into Latin America as part of its Belt and Road Initiative. That investment has translated into rising influence and rising powers in Latin America. Honduras is the 9th diplomatic ally that Taipei lost to Beijing after President Tsai Ing-wen was elected in May 2016. Taiwan still now has diplomatic relations with 13 countries in the world. Most of them, you can see 7 in Latin America, 1 in South Africa, and 4 in South Pacific, and 1 is Holy See. In his interview podcast, the president of Palau, one of our diplomatic allies in South Pacific, Serengo Jr., said that Beijing directed tourism away from Palau following its warming relations with Taiwan. Marketing in China for Palau has stopped. Another obvious example of China's economic coercion on Taiwan is through our entertainment industry. In an effort to shape the international narrative of Taiwan through culture, China has used economic coercion to influence our key cultural figures. Recently, the Taiwanese music artists Ouyang Nana and also Angela Zhang, they have performed in China's televised television National Day program in 2020 and were later featured in their advertisement promoting cross-strait unification. They were fiercely criticized in Taiwanese social media, and they were faced with fines up to 17,000 US dollars, but this is minimal compared to what they have earned in financial success in the Chinese market. The mere risk of losing financial opportunities in China is often enough to incentivize these pro-Beijing stance in entertainment. The boycott mechanism has been used to sever Taiwanese celebrities, brand deals, and endorsements from China, including the famous Taiwanese TV show Xiao S, who show her public support for a Taiwanese Olympic athlete, and she lost the endorsement from Shanghai-based commercials. Another recent example of economic sanction is about the United States, is the micron. It has been prohibited from the Chinese market. This has further drawn South Korea into the US-China big country competition, because once Micron withdrew from the Chinese semiconductor supply chain, whether Korea will step in to fill the gap, it would become a question whether the South Korea will encourage or discourage its firms to fill the gap by Micron's exclusion. So this is another geopolitical topic that the observers are watching. How do we deal with this kind of economic coercion? And actually, since President took her office in 2016, she launched a new southbound policy that is to help Taiwanese investors in mainland China relocate to countries in Southeast Asia and in India. And Taiwanese government in recent years have partnered with private sectors in diverting their investment to like-minded partners and countries such as Lithuania and India. I believe TSMC's announcement to invest $40 billion US in its Arizona plant is also a strategic plan. The G7 leaders communicate has also made it clear that the bloc will also address challenges posed by China's non-market policies and practices which are disruptive to the global economy. Another example of the strategic investment is Foxconn's decision to partner with Mitex Canada is a great example for Taiwanese companies to work with the Canadian talents to develop the EV electric car and also the ICT industry. This is basically the broad picture of my presentation. I would like to share with you that central to the Taiwanese identity is the love for freedom and democracy. And democracy thrives in Taiwan. According to recent polls have indicated that the upcoming presidential election in 2024 will be highly competitive. And there is no clear frontrunner according to the recent poll. There is no clear clear front runner. Apart from being competitive, all of the candidates are native-born Taiwanese. And this is an unprecedented situation in Taiwan's political history. With that being said, stakes are very high. Beijing is attempting to sway the outcome of the elections by military intimidation, as we see the military aircraft crossing the Taiwan Strait and Taiwan's air defense identification zone on a daily basis. And an increasing number of those aircraft are actually crossing the median line of the Taiwan Strait, which indicates the peaceful status quo for Taiwan for decades. So this is why we need to rally with international partners, like-minded countries, to defend the values that we share. And also that's why it is so important to elect a leader who can defend our national security and also democracy. So this is crucial for Taiwan's future. And this is probably why when people ask why our voting rate in Taiwanese presidential election are so high, the last voting rate is 75%. So there are many more that I have not detailed in the presentation on progress of our bilateral relations, such as the House report, Canadian House report on Taiwan, and the Memorandum of Understanding on Public Health Cooperation, and there's dual diploma program between school districts of our municipalities, Indigenous Affairs exchange, and parliamentarian visits. So we are working hard to continue to promote our bilateral relations, and we are looking forward to seeing and doing more. So now I would like to open the floor for questions if you have any. And happy Dragon Boat Festival. Today is this festival. This is the holiday, national holiday for Taiwan. I think in China too, right?
Okay, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand and state your name and your affiliation.
Professor Paul Meyer.
Hello. Thank you, Director General. It was really interesting. You crammed in a lot of information in that address. My name is Paul Meyer. Adjunct professor here at the School of International Studies. I mean, there are many things I would be interested in following up, but just to pick one, I mean, you mentioned, and this is, of course, a pretty dramatic move, the increase in the term of conscription from 3 months to 12 months in your country. And two questions related to that. I'm wondering, can you give us any information on how that change was received by the population? Was there any polling done about the attitude towards that increase? And second, in terms of shared values of gender equality, I'm wondering, will women be able to serve, or will they be subject to conscription like their male counterparts?
Our conscription policy still restricted to men, right? And then I don't have the number of polls whether young people will object to that new system yet, but President Tsai has mentioned that it's not pushing young men to real warfare. It is now the war involves a lot of technology, a lot of innovation, and so we would like to train our young men to learn more modern day technology to engage in a war. So that would persuade. Of course, when we want to, there's a dilemma that we want freedom and democracy. We don't want to become another Hong Kong, but you have to defend your countries in this way. And talking about female participants in our military service, I think there are a couple of good examples, not conscription system, but volunteer to be serviced in our military. We have our National Defense Ministry have promoted a couple of outstanding young women. And actually in our office, there is a very outstanding young officer, not from military, but for the investigation bureau to deal with the cross-border crime. So more and more young generation, regardless of gender, they are willing to defend for their values in Taiwan. Yes.
Hi, Director General Liu. Nice to see you. I'm Mike Goddard from Global Affairs Canada. Thank you for the shout out to the Indo-Pacific Strategy. I'm just wondering, is that something that caught any kind of public interest in Taiwan or within policy circles, and how has that been received?
You mean the Canadian IPS in Taiwan? I don't have a poll number, but my colleague has been promoting the Indo-Pacific strategy of Canada and the media. The media has been very Canada has been becoming more and more popular in Taiwanese media nowadays. They talk about your military warship transit in the Taiwan Strait, and they talk about our Indigenous Affairs Ministry, Yi-Chang Parut, leading a delegation of 25 people to Canada, to Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver to visit the First Nation community, and they talk about the FIPA. They talk about FIPA, and they talk about whether Canada would support Taiwan's CPTPP application and coupled with the Canadian beef import. So a lot of interesting topic happening between Taiwan and Canada. Also included the dual diploma program. The new Taipei city just sent 10 people delegation to Coquitlam School District to realize their memorandum of understanding. Since the memorandum of understanding was signed during the COVID, nobody can travel. But after the COVID the border control is lifted, people start to travel, and people talk about the parliamentary visit from Canada to Taiwan, and your member of parliament even got the interview by CBC TV host was even translated into Chinese in our media and reported. So and we increased another office in Montreal. It becomes Canada becomes news in our civil society, and I believe there will be more to come. Thank you. Yes, me.
My name is May Karasawa. I'm an exec member of CIC Vancouver, and I have two questions. So the first one is more about Taiwan's public opinion on military or defense expenses, the increase of defense expenses with their allies, and what's the public opinion about it? Like for example, Japan increases its GDP 2%, and what's public opinion in Taiwan about that? And the second question is about green technology development in Taiwan. So you mentioned EVs. So I remember, I guess China is one of the leading countries in green technology, and I wonder how Taiwan is trying to join this competition. I know semiconductor is used in EV, so is there any other area Taiwan is trying to cooperate with other countries?
The first question is about the public on the defense. I think the most important is for the political party, the ruling party, control the majority of our parliament, so they can work with the ruling party, the government, to pass the budget. I think that is the most important thing. If there is no majority government, then it would become a scapegoat, or it become a very majority government, and that would be difficult for the ruling party to utilize those national defense budget. And we are under a lot of pressure from outsiders to increase our national defense, since we are the country to defend ourselves. So I think the important factor is the party control the parliament and can work with the ruling party. And the other question is on the green energy. I just visited the Beller Power in Burnaby, which is a hydrogen energy company in Burnaby. They shared with me that, Chinese does hold about 18% of the company's shares, and it is a new technology. And the point for China to succeed in the renewable solution is, the state-owned enterprises can make decisions very quickly. But in Taiwan, we are a democratic society, so we are still allocating our budget in renewable energy, mostly in offshore wind power and also solar power. So we work with Canada too, like the Northland Power Company, to help build our offshore wind power plant in the Taiwan Strait. And we will continue to study the possibility of hydrogen power, but it is still on the study stage because according to Ballard Company's representative, it costs a lot R&D for this renewable energy to really put into usage in our daily usage. Yeah, it costs a lot, but it's one of our energy policy to study and work with Canada. Yes.
Thank you for your remarks and touching on the Indo-Pacific Strategy. I'm Marzi, I'm with the Western Transportation Advisory Council based out of Vancouver. So my question is on the trade side of things. For Taiwan, what are Canada's top imports on Taiwan's perspective? Like what commodities or goods are you expecting to increase in terms of trade in the next little while?
Yeah, the top import items from Taiwan to Canada is ICT industries like computer and auto parts, and that is the top imports. So you have a huge we import Taiwan export to Canada much more than the other way. So that's why BC government is launching its trade diversification strategy and targeted Taiwan, Vietnam, and Mexico as the new and targeted market because you have to export more to the Indo-Pacific countries, and Taiwan has been targeted to export more from your timber woods and your minerals. Now a lot of Canadian export to Taiwan is mineral, and so, but now we can see if we can work more together on the innovation industry and the renewable solutions.
John Arthur, I'm a federal civil servant and a member here with the CIC, and I'm curious about Taiwan's relationship with Japan.
Right.
And I ask your thoughts, thinking of Korea as an analogy. I know for myself, I'm more familiar with how the Republic of Korea's relationship with Japan can be complicated because of the history. And so they are, cooperate on international security, but they also have some issues, and public opinion is very difficult for Korean leaders to work through when they're trying to cooperate with Japan. What is the popular opinion in Taiwan like about Japan? And is the relationship and the security or military relationship at all, is that changing, or is it consistent over the years?
Right. Taiwanese and Taiwanese love Japan as a tourist destination and cultural and in economy, we are so close. But in terms of security, I know we are increasing to persuade the U.S. and Japanese government in their U.S.-Japan security alliance that would include Taiwan as if any contingency happens in between in this area. So that is security. And there are increasing number of, actually a lot of Japanese parliamentarians visit Taiwan from time to time, and Taiwanese politician has historical consolidation with their Japanese counterparts. So the Taiwan-Japan relations, although it's not official, it's not like what Canada takes note of one China policy, the Taiwan-Japan relations is very close economically and people to people, and also agricultural products, etc. But there is one event that we like to mention is the last year we passed a referendum to allow the agricultural products from Fukushima after the tsunami happened in Japan. Taiwanese banned the food from that to import into Taiwan. That has economic impact for Japan. So in order for Japan to support Taiwan's membership in CPTPP, we work very hard to persuade our civilian society to support, to cast a vote in support of allowing Japanese agricultural products from the Fukushima to import into Taiwan. So we pass it. So I think it's a very positive event for the bilateral relations.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And my question is coming from your statement that Taiwan don't want to watch Taiwan becoming like another Hong Kong. And then again, coming from your other statement about Taiwan-Japan political diplomacy. And then from observation, between 2015 and 2021, I was in Hong Kong watching how gradually Hong Kong was infiltrated and then up to what it was at the moment. So my question is, what are the strategies put in place by Taiwanese government to checkmate political alliances and relationship between Taipei politicians and then, cohesive relationship between Chinese? Because, I think there was a time in 2019 that we thought there would be an invasion. For more than 3 weeks, there were military standby at Hong Kong. But that never happened, maybe as a way of Chinese system. When they say there's a fire in door A, there's actually a fire, but the fire might be in door B. So what is the strategy put in place to actually checkmate political cohesiveness? And if we look back at the last election between the current president and his powerful contender, we see something of such almost interplaying. So currently, what are the strategies put in place to check that some powerful politicians were not being kind of swayed and then maybe give a loophole as what happened in Hong Kong?
Can you help me, abbreviate the question?
Yeah, I guess what is the, I guess the question, correct me if I'm wrong, the question is with how to basically ensure that politicians in Taiwan can stay or not influenced by mainland China. Is that the question?
Okay. Yeah. So it's a very good question. It's about there are two major political parties in Taiwan, KMT and DPP, and now we have a third party, People First Party, 民众党. And as shown, the three major presidential candidates here. So the cross-strait policy, Taiwan-China relations, each party has different policy. So for DPP, it is maintenance the sovereignty and the Taiwanese sovereignty without formally announcing independence and not to provoke mainland China is the DPP policy, and to make sure that there is parity between the PRC and the ROC and Taiwan. So for KMT, it's a little bit ambiguity in between. There is a phrase called 92 consensus, that is each part of the Taiwan Strait, PRC and ROC recognize there is one China, but there's a different interpretation. For PRC, the one China is PRC. For the KMT, it is ROC, which is Republic of China, which is Taiwan, but a democratic China. So, and for 民众党, for the third presidential candidate, it is a little bit more ambiguous that, okay, we want to keep good relations with both China and the United States. We don't want to declare any kind of a clear standpoint on whether we want to unify with China or not. We want to develop practical relations economically and people-to-people relations between China and Taiwan. So it is a very, it's a very sensitive issue in presidential election right now. But regardless of USAT politicians' position, according to the opinion poll conducted by National Zhengzhi University, most of the Taiwanese, and nowadays, as is shown on the top black line, is to support the status quo. That is, we don't want to declare independence and we don't want to be unified with China. We want to live in status quo. But as you can see, Yeah, this is which Shenzhen maintaining status quo and decide a later date. So on the blue line, so the blue line means we will maintain the status quo forever. And the green line shows that maintain status quo and move forward independence. As you can see from 2018, which is the yellow umbrella movement in Hong Kong. So more and more people in Taiwan are pro, maintaining our own sovereignty. We don't want to be part of the PRC, unification. So that is the people's identity happened recent years, regardless what those politicians said. As I said in my presentation, the next presidential election will be crucial to Taiwan's future because we don't want to be part of we don't want to be influenced by the Chinese United Front strategy to change to become another Hong Kong, to become one country, two systems, because we understand there will be no two systems. Finally, there will be only one country. So, but we don't want a war either. So status quo becomes a mainstream idea in Taiwanese society right now.
Thank you.
Yes, I think you.
Yeah, I'm Stel. I'm also with the executive team at CSC. My question was about, there has been a lot of talks about the rising multipolar world order. What steps are Taiwan taking in the multilateral forums such as UN? That would be helpful to Taiwan's interests.
Right. Yeah, it's the most challenging and difficult in the United Nations. But since United Nations is too difficult and Chinese influence in the UN system is getting more and more influential in that organization. So we try to promote meaningful participation for Taiwan in WHO, in International Civil Aviation Organization, and also in UNFCCC, the Climate Change Convention for the United Nations. Meaningful participation means that we only request for observership, and then we request that a lot of the technical meeting would include Taiwanese experts in it. For example, our doctors and our nurses could participate in WHO technical meeting, and our climate change experts, professors in Taiwan University can be invited by UBC professors at the Department of Forestry to participate in the UNFCCC COP26 meeting. So that kind of approach would be more realistic for Taiwan at this moment.
Thank you, Director General Liu, for the insight. So my name is Suryo. I'm from the Asia-Pacific Foundation of Canada. So my question is related with the geopolitical shift. So you mentioned that TSMC is upgrading its foundry in Phoenix, Arizona, right?
Right.
And also there are plans to also build foundries in Japan and the EU, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
But as you are aware that the most advanced chip and smallest one is still manufactured in Taiwan.
In Hsinchu, yes.
Yeah, so considering the geopolitical tension at the moment, do you think there's a possibility for TSMC to basically relocate the most advanced foundry to other countries?
Mm.
If yes, to which country? If no,
which country are you from? Well, I am not Maurice Zhang and I'm not Liu Deyi, but according to this question has been raised to Maurice Zhang too, and then he clearly say that will be in Taiwan. So we will continue, TSMC, not we, TSMC will continue to expand our 3 nanometer chip plant in Taiwan, and we will keep the most advanced technology in Taiwan, and that situation will not change. Yeah, and then actually I just participated in one AI meeting in Vancouver, and you participated in that too. According to my conversation with one TSMC company representative, even 1 nanometer is planned right now. in Taiwan. And it is said that the number, 90%, over 90% of the chips is produced, of the most advanced chips is produced in Taiwan. But he said, before Arizona plant start to function, it is 100% in Taiwan. So a war in Taiwan Strait would be catastrophic for the world economy, since the most gadget that we use on a daily basis needs that chips. Yeah.
Do you think that from my perspective, it seems that Taiwan used the chip as a bargaining chip, unintended, for basically to avoid, not to avoid, but to shield the invasion.
Yeah,
from China, right?
the silicon shield that we call it silicon shield to protect ourselves is a strategic asset for Taiwan to protect ourselves. It is, yeah, that's true.
So just being mindful of the time, I think we have more time for 2 more questions. Yeah, just so everybody knows, aware of the time.
Well, but I want to point out one more important factor. I remember somebody said it's not a globalization era anymore. It's not market driven economy anymore. It is a democratic camp and authoritarian camp right now. So Taiwanese company and Taiwanese government work together to invest in like-minded countries such as such as Canada, such as United States, and such as India. So and Lithuania. Lithuania has faced fierce economic coercion and sanction from China because it allowed Taiwan to establish a representative office in Taiwan name in its capital. And so we have been putting a lot of capital in that country right now. So I think now is the value decided the market world right now. Yes.
Sorry for coming late, but thank you for your speech. I really had a big question regarding economic stuff. So, there's a lot of students coming from Taiwan and also Taiwanese students based in foreign countries like Canada that do basic research. There are PhD students, master's students, whatever. Is the Taiwanese government actually have a plan to actually bring these students back who have trained skills with basic research that are outside of what Taiwan specializes in, which is technology? People, let's say forestry people, PhDs in forestry, basic research done in other sectors. Is Taiwan doing any action to bring that expertise back to Taiwan and to create
Yeah, we are working so hard to contact Taiwan program. We want all the talents, not only Taiwanese overseas, especially outstanding students studying UBC PhD program, but also Canadian students who are willing, a lot of TAA program alumni. You are studying Huayu scholarship in Taiwan, and we are attracting overseas Taiwanese who have lived in other countries to come back to Taiwan to study undergraduate program. It is under the sponsorship of the Overseas Complete Chao Wei Hui. So we also rolled out a gold card program that we give a lot of benefits to gold card program beneficiary who is eligible to participate. But of course, the qualification and standard for that program is pretty high, that you have to have certain amount of salaries in commercial sector, or you have to be outstanding in medicine and medical research and certain research, and so that would have some qualification. But we do need talents to come back to Taiwan to work for the country. Yeah, there is program. So please feel free to take the brochure that my colleague prepared for you guys. And for PhD candidates, and I think the National Science Council, 国科会, and also Ministry of Technology would be the right department for you to approach. for more opportunities.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Director General. I'm Justin Kwan from the Asia-Pacific Foundation of Canada. I wanted to go back to a point you talked about at the end of your presentation, which was the upcoming election.
Right.
And I know that many of us in Canada here will be observing the results of that election. As an observant outsider, I think the thing that struck me about Taiwan's democracy is the successful and peaceful transition that has happened over the last few elections. But I think the picture you painted in your slides has been one of a changing geopolitical dynamic. So I'm just wondering, as we all look towards those election results, what issues should Canadians be watching or looking out for as the election kind of unfolds?
I think I would like to see if the PRC's United Front strategy to try to change the outcome of our election would work, such as there's a phrase that if you vote for the DPP and then the young people need to go to war, such kind of, this kind of conspiracy theory, and also sending, they receiving gracefully our opposition party leader in China, but turn down any kind of contacts with the ruling party. So we would like to see any kind of united front strategy like this would work in our presidential election, whether the young people in Taiwan would choose to trust those theory or not. That's my personal opinion. But people may want to see, I asked a high-tech company's former CEO yesterday whether how does those business leader in China like Foxconn or Asus or Inventec, how do they think about the current situation? I think they are trying to relocate to other countries, but it's not very easy because it's very easy to draw the money out from mainland China at this moment, and there are a lot of details that I'm not aware, but I know it's difficult.
All right, thank you everyone. I think we can wrap this event. Please give a big hand to because the event is finished doesn't mean that we're going to kick you out. I mean, you guys can stay for about half an hour just to talk and get to know each other. Like I mentioned earlier in my introduction, that CIC would like to help people who are interested in international affairs and foreign policy to stay engaged and get to know each other and create a vibrant community in our city. Okay, so thank you very much again, and Director General, this is just a little gift from CIC Vancouver. Thank you, everyone.
Professor, I think I don't have the pulse for young people.